Welcome back to the Career Dad Show, and I'm here with John Horton. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Good to be on your show and good to have a
Thank you.
conversation with somebody. The world's a little crazy these days. It's nice to talk.
Exactly. No, I love it, and it's so funny because when I first got introduced to you, and I read your accolades, I had it, and I guess for the listeners, we'll come on to that. I had in my mind a picture of who I was going to be talking to, and it was someone who was probably not a year older than me. You've achieved so much. I mean, retired American gymnast. A number of times in the Olympics, medalist at the Beijing Olympics. Your accolades. Author. American Ninja Warrior, which I really am interested to talk to you about. And how where did that all begin? If I take that right back, how did you even get into gymnastics?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. It's absolutely
Okay.
ridiculous too. So I did gymnastics for 28 years,
Wow.
and when I first got into it, first off, neither of my parents ever did sports. They weren't
Okay.
athletes, and I was just kind of a crazy, like, wild kid, like ADD, bouncing off the wall, like
Right.
ADHD, like hyperactive kid. Anyways, one day my mom, she took me shopping with her, and we were in the middle of a department store, and I took off. She lost me. She couldn't find me anywhere. And like I said, I think I was maybe 4 years old when this happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm like running around the store like a crazy person. My mom can't find me. 10 minutes goes by. She starts to panic until the whole store starts searching, and they can't find me either. Except the manager finally spots me and comes up to my mom and says, "Ma'am, calm down. I found your son." And he pointed to the ceiling, said he's way up there. And there was a there was a giant support beam in the middle of the store that I had literally climbed all the way to the top,
Wow.
and I was just hanging out. I had wrapped my arms and legs around it like a bear climbing a tree, and I was at the ceiling. And I came down the pole, didn't realize I had done anything wrong. My mom told my dad about it that night when he got home from work, and my dad's exact words were, "Wow, our son is a freak. We should put him in gymnastics." And so they enrolled me into a gymnastics facility the very next day, having no idea
Wow.
what they were getting into, having no idea whether their son had any gifting at all. They just
Yeah.
knew I was a little crazy and I had a lot of energy. And
Yeah.
that was the spark of my career. And so from 4 to 32 years old, I was a competitive gymnast. And like you mentioned, some of the accolades, I look back on it now and I'm like, I guess I did do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
um, it was a good career. I really enjoyed it.
And do you know what I'm finding fascinating in my mind is that was a pivotal moment. At 4 years old, you had a pivotal moment that could have gone one of two ways. It could have
Yeah.
been a slap round the head and never do that again. But it wasn't. It was, ooh, yeah, that might not have been the best thing to do to climb, into. But actually, let's look at what that could translate into. And you just got pushed down. So was that kind of your upbringing in a nutshell? Just very supportive parents and
It depended on the situation,
right.
It's like I think that's the beauty of being a parent. Sometimes you have to take that gift and you have to help your child cultivate it and you've got to help them grow if it's a positive gift.
Hmm.
And then sometimes you see things that your kids do and you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I gotta cut this off right away," right? It's funny you mentioned that though. One of the sponsors that I had when I
Hmm.
was training for my second Olympics in 2012 was a company called TD Ameritrade.
Right.
And I don't know if you or our listeners have heard of TD Ameritrade. They're a big banking company.
Okay.
And we did a commercial that ran for a couple months before the Olympics, and actually the narrator was a famous actor Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And Matt Damon in the commercial, it starts off with me as a little bitty kid. Some of my home footage of me first starting gymnastics. I'm falling all over the place. It's hilarious. I'm like 6 years old.
Right.
And Matt Damon basically says, when Jonathan Horton was 4 years old, he climbed a pole in the middle of a department store, and where some parents would have scolded him, Jonathan's parents gave him gymnastics lessons. And then all of a sudden, it
Yeah.
cuts to this it cuts to this clip of me flying through the air at the Olympic Games, and it's like it gives me goosebumps when I watch it because it's like I know it's me, but it's really cool to think about the fact that it was that one moment in time that my parents went, "Okay, we know that that was a really bad thing that he did, but there's
Yeah.
something there for us to work with.
Yeah.
And you have to do that as a parent. You got to go, all right. I know my daughter just painted our walls with crayons,
Yeah.
but that's kind of a pretty drawing. You
Yeah.
know, maybe she needs to be taking some professional art classes or
Yeah.
something. So you got to look at your kids and go like, what's there? Is it good or bad?
So and you've taken this in a direction that I wasn't necessarily thinking of, because how much does patience play a role? You know, the patience and the determination that you've had as you know, the top percent of professional athleticism. How has that served you as a parent? You've got two kids, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. How
yeah,
has
two
that served you as
kids.
a parent, do you think?
Oh, I think it served me very well. You know, both my kids are very young still. My son is 7, my daughter's 4.
Right.
And I have to be extremely patient with them. And I feel like I fail as a dad more than I succeed. You know, it's
Really?
like so oftentimes, it's like I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to
Mm.
spend better quality time. And as parents, I think sometimes we're really hard on ourselves on our kids. They love being around us, and
Yeah.
what we do for them a lot of times is enough. But if you really are doing your best, you're always wondering, how can I do more?
Mm.
How can I be a better parent for my kids? It's not necessarily about giving them more, but
Yeah.
providing a better environment, better lessons, just an overall taking what you had as a kid and going, how can I provide mentally, emotionally, and materially for my kids, just in
Mm.
an even better way. And so, for me as a gymnast, I always tell people, I wasn't exactly the most gifted and talented gymnast in the world. I was actually really, really slow to succeed. People are typically shocked to hear that I didn't even win my first somewhat like important competition until I was almost 16 years old.
Wow.
Um, People often think, oh, you're an Olympic medalist in whatever sport. They think, oh, well, you're probably a prodigy as a kid. Probably had all the natural gifts. You're strong. You're fast. You're everything you need. Well, not really, not me. So I had to be very patient and work really, really hard to get where I wanted to go.
Mm.
And I think that that's helped me in every avenue of my life as a parent, as a business person, as whatever I'm doing, just to be able to go, okay, look, I'm going to screw up a lot. I'm going to fail a lot, but I'm looking big picture at, long-term goal. Where do I want to be and how am I going to get there?
Yeah, and that's really interesting because again, I naively just assumed, 4 years old, climbing a pole in a department store. Yeah, let's put him on the rings, let's put him on the high bar, and let's see what happens. But how? So, and I want to talk to you about kind of mindset and how important mindset is to you, because I think as adults it's something that many people struggle with. But even then, from for you had 12 years of an early stage in life of not necessarily failing but not winning, and
Yeah.
how was that, how do, as a kid, how do you have the resilience to just keep going?
Well, so first off, there were a lot of tears involved.
Yeah.
Um, I remember as a young kid, I started competing when I was 6,
Yeah.
and I walked away from competition after competition with nothing, no
Mm.
medals, no trophies, no ribbons, watching all my teammates and friends, get to win stuff. And it
Mm.
was really hard for me. I think the one thing that I always tell people that kept me moving forward, kept me driving forward, was that I was lucky enough to witness something so powerful that I couldn't get it out of my head. And that was when I was 10, I got to watch my first Olympics on TV. It was the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm from the U.S. Maybe I honestly don't know what it was, but there was something so impactful about watching the women's gymnastics team win gold.
Mm.
For our listeners, there was this crazy moment where one of the young athletes on the women's gymnastics team, Carrie Strug, in order to win the gold medal, secure that gold medal at the end of the competition, she had to do a vault. She had to run down the runway, hit the springboard, fly over the vault, and she did 2 flips with a 1.5 twist. Well, what made it so special was not only is that vault so crazy hard, but she had to do it on a badly injured, like broken ankle.
Ooh.
And she was barely able to like begin running, but she somehow like mustered up the courage and the strength to complete the vault, landed on one foot before she collapsed to the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like this crazy heroic moment that I
Mm.
was on the edge of my seat watching as a 10-year-old, and a 10-year-old who enjoyed gymnastics and really enjoyed it, but hadn't really done anything.
Mm.
Was pretty discouraged. And then all of a sudden I see this thing and it's like, boom, whoa, that's what I want. Like, I want to be a hero at the Olympics. This is
Yeah.
crazy. You know, watching Carrie Strug be basically carried to the awards podium as her teammates join her, had the gold medal placed over her neck, the flag goes in the air, the country anthem begins to play. And I could still picture it perfectly in my head. And suddenly, like, the switch flipped. I was like, that's it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going for that right there. And there was something about that moment that was like so etched in my brain that every day that I went to the gym, I tell people all the time, I quit gymnastics every single day. Every day I quit. But I woke up the next morning and decided to give it another try.
Yeah.
And it was just that, it's exactly what you said. It's like this mental fortitude that I was able to develop because of this crazy goal I couldn't forget about. And I think not everybody is able to find that one thing, right? You know, some people, we look our whole lives for that one thing to be so inspired about that we will do whatever it takes. I know a lot of people that they struggle. They're like, man, John, you're so lucky you got that thing. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You haven't yet, but don't give up on at least
Yeah.
searching for that thing. You know, people give up on success because they haven't seen the picture of success that they want.
Yeah.
So they then give up on living a big life. Well, just like you can't give up on your work, you also can't give up on your inspiration. Like,
Yeah.
you deserve to continue to search for your inspiration as much as you deserve to continue to work hard for money or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I meet a lot of people that they're discouraged by that right there. I'm like, just keep looking
Yeah.
and try new things every single day. Over every single door that opens, like, kick it in, check it out, walk through it, see what it's all about, and you never know where you're going to find that thing that is etched in your brain like it was mine, and you just
Yeah.
go all out for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a very different environment, but in my kind of work capacity, the thing that I've always been fascinated with, it's the things that I've been the most resistant to, that when I've
Yep.
gone into them, I have loved them,
Yep.
and actually done quite well at them. And so now I'm at a place where I seek out those things. I mean, I'm probably a nightmare to manage when I have those career conversations, because my boss goes, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, show me some stuff. Where it's, you
Yeah.
know, but what do you think? What do you think stops people from searching, from just accepting that what they have is what they'll always have?
Oh, it's a good question, and I think it's a multitude of things.
Right.
I think, you know, I'll be 35 in December, and I already at my age, you know, I'm a big dreamer. My head's in the clouds. I've always said that I live with my head in the clouds because the view's better up here. And I'm okay with that. Like,
Yeah.
I know I have these radical ideas, but even at almost 35 years old, start to feel like, maybe I'm too old for new dreams.
Really.
Maybe I'm running out of time. And, you know, you meet people that are in their 40s and 50s that maybe they finally find their inspiration, and they immediately cut themselves off from it because they go, oh, I just don't have time. It's like, I'm too old already. I'm not gonna be able to accomplish what I want. Like, forget that. Like, go for it.
Yeah.
Your age is in your mind. Like,
Yeah.
the most powerful thing that we have is the 6 inches between our two ears. And regardless of your level of talent, regardless of your age, regardless of how smart you are or aren't, like, if you finally find that thing,
Yeah.
like, do whatever it takes to go for it. And I think a lot of times people get burned out on even searching for that thing. They just get tired. And for those of you that are listening that do feel you're exhausted, you don't know what to look for next, shoot, take a little break, take a few steps back from life, I guess. I think that's been the one good thing that coronavirus has done for, I guess, so many of us, is we've had a chance to sit in silence and go, what do I do next with my life?
Yeah.
You know, the rat race is kind of slowed down, you know, especially here in America. We're still stuck in our homes with nothing to do. I've had a time to really evaluate, you know, what do I want next? And so I think people are excited. They're ready to go right now. But if you are one of those people that you have no idea what's next, well, take a break, relax yourself, you know, go online and start to research and see what's out there, and always be, you know, on mission, you know, hunting for that thing. But then at the same time, it's like I said, you got to take a break sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's really, really good advice, because I think sometimes as well, people can be on a path, they might have gone to university or college and, done accounting and then become an accountant and then, 30 years throughout their career realize they don't want to be an accountant, but they're heading to 60. And I think that sometimes you can get so caught in a path, in a treadmill, that you might not necessarily want to, but you don't also want to ask the questions of yourself too deeply in case you don't like the answers. And as you say, something like, coronavirus is, people are going to be in that situation whether they like it or not. And I think utilize it, as you say. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, you're it's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's never too late to discover something that you didn't even realize that you had within you. And I love what you said. Sometimes the things that you thrive the most on are the things that you are the most, hesitant to jump into. I've experienced that same thing. I'll give you kind of a goofy example. So when I retired from gymnastics, I had a really close friend of mine who has been doing martial arts his entire life. He's 37 years old. He's got a black belt in Taekwondo, almost made the Olympics in Taekwondo. He's got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and all of these different types of martial arts. Well, I retired and he goes, "Hey, John, man, you should try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think that you'll really enjoy it." And I was like, "No, man, I don't even know what that is." He was like, "Come check it out." And so I walk into the gym and I see a class, and it's a bunch of these like big sweaty guys rolling around on the ground trying to choke each other out. And I'm just like, "No, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to roll around with a bunch of other sweaty guys." So I fought him on it for like 6 months. Finally, he kept bugging me about it. So I was like, "Fine, I'll come in for one class."
Yeah.
Not even kidding. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 2 years now, and I'm hooked. I love it.
Really? How are you getting on?
Oh man, it's so fun.
It's brutal.
It is brutal. Perfect word. It is, and I get my butt kicked all the time. I get, like people that are smaller than me that have way less athleticism that have been doing it for a lot longer make me feel like a chump. Like, it's so funny. That's the beauty of the sport, though. It's not necessarily who's the biggest and strongest. It's who's got a clear mindset going into kind of the battle, who's put in the time and the technical expertise. And so, but long story short, like, I thought I was going to hate it. And now it's like my newest favorite passion. And so you just never know what you're going to run into, which is why I tell people all the time, seriously, if there's an opportunity that presents itself, just wing it. See what happens. Like, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, exactly. And one more question on the kind of the gymnast at Olympian side. So I wanted to know kind of two key pivotal moments in your career, which for me, I guess, would be the first time as probably a young kid where you thought, I might be quite good at this, and then getting that call for the Olympics. But you said that you at 10 you had the dream to be in the Olympics. That's when you saw that. But listening to what else you've said, it sounds like you probably weren't that great at the time. So it wasn't that the ability came and then the dream came first. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, the dream was there, and the dream is what sparked the work ethic to get me where I wanted to go. I've met a lot of really, really gifted and talented athletes in my life. And I think more times than not, the most gifted and talented ones are the people that don't make it to the Olympics. Right. They're the ones that they think that their talent alone is going to get them where they want to go. And so they don't work as hard. They're a little bit, in the gymnastics world, they walk into the gym a little bit late. They don't take as many turns on the apparatus as everybody else, but they're the best for a while. Until the kid who really, really has a huge dream and big, bold ambition is sick of being beat by this kid who's lazy, and they finally pass him up. Yeah. And that was my whole career. I really do believe, and I don't ever want this to come across as arrogant or cocky, but I was the hardest worker in the gym. Yeah. By far. Every single day. There were kids that would go up and take a turn on the pommel horse or the high bar, and they would wait around for 5 minutes before going again. Well, in that 5 minutes, I went 6 more times, and so I knew that at a very young age, I recognized how difficult it was going to be to become an Olympian.
Yeah.
And with that recognition came the fact that I also saw, okay, I'm going to have to outwork every other person in here or it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And, people like Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps or Simone Biles, these people that are like the greatest ever at their sports, they're the very rare breed of uber talented
Yeah.
and hard workers.
Yeah.
Usually you have the people that are like, they've got a little something there, but a huge work ethic, or super talented and they become lazy. I'll take a hardworking person over a talented person all day,
Yeah.
and because they can just do so much with their life.
Yeah.
I don't remember the second part of your question now,
No,
but that just,
no, but that's that's fine. I do that. Ask three questions in one, and then go.
no.
So yeah, no, and that's fantastic. So I guess to summarize that for the listeners, it is have the dream and then figure out how to put in the work ethic and figure out how to do the dream.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so like my first somewhat like big competition that I ever went to, I was actually 11. Like when I'm telling you,
Wow.
after I saw the Olympics when I was 10, like everything changed. I started learning in a dramatic fashion. And so 10 years old, I watched the Olympics. 11 years old, I get to my first like national competition.
Wow.
And it was this thing called the Future Stars Nationals. There were 50 boys from around the United States got to compete, and they were going to take the top 15 to make the like national training squad.
Hmm.
And so I was hoping this could be like my breakout moment. And I hadn't really done anything in the sport, but I was really excited. And so I go to this competition. I do really well. And in men's gymnastics, there's six routines that you have to do. I do my first five. I go to my last one, which is on the pommel horse. And for our listeners that don't know what a pommel horse is, well, it's this like big, like wooden block looking thing, and there's these two wooden handles on top, and we like kind of break dance, or we spin our bodies around on our hands. It's my worst event, but I thought, okay, I can get through this. So going into that last final routine, I was actually in the top 10. I was having like
Wow.
the amazing day. And I jump up to the pommel horse, and my hand immediately slips, and I fall onto the ground. And I jump back up. I start again, and the same thing happens. And then I end up falling 4 more times after that for a total of
Ooh.
6 falls on my final routine. And out of a 10.0, which is always the perfect goal in gymnastics, I scored a 1.9 on my routine. And so I went from being in the top 10 with one routine to go to finishing dead last, 50th place.
Wow.
And it was one of the most devastating moments of my entire career where I was like, okay, this isn't for me. I can't handle pressure. I'm
Yeah.
just going to quit. I'm never going to come back. But what I learned from that was just, I can't even put into words all of the things that I learned. It was my greatest failures that taught me how to come back stronger, because the next year I performed at that same competition. I got second place in the all around.
Hmm.
But then that became the theme of my career until, like I said, I was almost 16. I was second or third at like so many things over and over and over again. Just couldn't break through and become first. But every single time I got close to winning, or every time I bombed and failed, it just made me kind of angry and like
Yeah.
I went back to the gym and I just began to work even harder. And so I'm very thankful for the struggles that I had, because they gave me that mental fortitude to be able to finally handle the pressure and the anxiety of an Olympic Games when I was 22 years old.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I think there's so many parallels that people can draw from your experience and put it into whatever it is that they're doing, which is something I love. I've heard a number of interviews that you've done, and a theme comes up, which is the pursuit of perfection. And I wanted to ask you about that. So what is the pursuit of perfection for you?
Well, for me, I've always had an issue with perfectionism in my life. And it was probably one of the things in my career that slowed me down the most. So, in a
Right.
sport like gymnastics, where it's called, the official name of my sport is artistic gymnastics.
Okay.
And much like ballet or figure skating or Olympic diving, the goal is to be perfect, because you're going to get a score.
Yes.
And you have human beings using their own eyes and judgment to score you and decide whether it was good enough. And shoot, what I realize now is that's kind of life in general. We're always being scored. We're always being judged.
Yeah.
Is your podcast good enough? Is is my work good enough today? Is the
Yeah.
book that I just wrote good enough? Or as I'm reading somebody else's book, I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Like, we're always being judged.
Yeah.
And so as a kid in a sport where I was judged, I hated not looking the way I wanted to look.
Hmm.
And not having that like natural gifting that most of the other gymnasts I trained with had, I knew that I had a unique style and it didn't always work for me. And so
Mm.
that pursuit of perfection was having an image of like what I wanted to be in my head and never giving up on attaining that image, even if I knew it was impossible. I knew I had an overly ambitious idea of what I wanted to be in my own mind. And it oftentimes, the reason it backfired on me a lot was because it caused so much frustration knowing that it was impossible to get there. And that frustration slowed me down. You know, I'm throwing fits in the gym. I'm getting angry. This isn't good enough. That's not good enough. That routine could have been better. I'm going to do it again. I pushed myself harder than my coaches could have ever dreamed of pushing me. And so that perfectionism bit me a lot. I had to learn how to like tone it back, like just turn it down a little bit. And once I kind of got a handle on that perfectionism, I started to understand that you can be perfect, but it's extremely rare. My coach used to tell me, John, you can be perfect 1% of your life. That's it.
Mm.
Just 1% of the time. So understand 99% of the time, you're going to pursue it. So don't get so angry that it's not there. Your time's going to come.
Yeah.
And it's one of the chapters in my first book that I wrote. It's titled 1%.
Right.
And so it's, my whole life I was always chasing this 1% moment, which I finally got at the Olympics. I had a perfect performance in 2008 at the Beijing Olympics. It was the only time in my entire career that I did all 6 of my routines, the best that I possibly could have done, didn't make a single mistake.
Yeah.
It was wild. It was crazy. I had no idea when that moment was finally going to come, but there it is.
What a time to do it, though.
What a time to do it. It was perfect. But, I think that we as people, it's really, really easy to get caught up in the minutia, the little things that we want to be so great. And instead of getting angry about it in the moment, look, again, I'll use the same term. Look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Are you getting closer every day? And, or do you see yourself progressing? That's what you want. You want to see progression. If you don't see that, that gives you a reason to get frustrated. But don't get mad that it's not perfect right now.
And is that, a key piece of tactical advice? Because there's so many people I speak to who are crippled by perfection. And
Yep.
is that the advice that you'd give, to actually take a step back and reflect and look at that bigger picture and the journey?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of it comes down to goal setting.
Yeah.
Do you have a big picture goal? For me, it was the Olympics. I knew one day I want to be at the Olympics. Well, here I am, an 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid, angry that I'm not an Olympic level gymnast yet. And, I'm wondering, why am I not good enough to do that? Why am I not good enough to do that? And, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that they jump into a brand new whatever. I'm going to start a new business, or I'll take your example. I'm going to start a brand new podcast. And your podcast isn't the number one podcast in the world in 6 months, a year, or even 5 years. And you're like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Instead of getting frustrated by it, look at the big picture. Here's where I want to be. And then work backwards. Okay, I'm 1 year into this. Here's where I am. Where do I want to be in 2 years? Where do I want to be in 3 years? Where do I want to be tomorrow? And so I used to break down my days. I had the big picture of the Olympics, and then I knew that when I was 18 years old, I wanted to get a full scholarship to a university.
Yeah.
So I knew in order to do that, I had to be at a certain level. And then when I was 16, I knew that I wanted to be a national team member. What do I got to do to get there? And you just slowly break it down into where, like, some days I walked into the gym and I would have very specific goals. Okay, by the end of the week, I want to learn this. So what do I have to do today? Right. And that was the only way that I was able to function without having a nervous breakdown because of my inner perfectionism, And so if you break it into little steps and you find like one thing to be thankful for at the end of the day, you'll be able to sleep so much better. Like, okay, I know I'm going to bed tonight and I did nothing with my day but this one thing. Like, I got one thing accomplished.
Yeah.
Your mind will be so much more clear, and it's how I sleep at night. I swear, if I didn't have one thing accomplished every day, I'd be up all night trying to figure out how to accomplish that one thing.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think recently I started reflecting on what did I actually achieve yesterday. So just 1 to 3
Yeah.
things, and you think, oh, actually, I did do. So even if it feels like it might have been a minor achievement day, you can actually think, and I find that quite useful.
It doesn't matter what it is. It could
Mm,
be like, all right, yesterday I know I was a little bit lazy and I didn't send out enough emails to potential clients.
yeah,
Today I'm going to send five.
yeah,
That's a win. That's
yeah,
a win. That means you're getting better. And the next day, all right, I'm going to make a list of to do and I'm going to accomplish 50% of that list.
yeah,
It doesn't matter what it is. You've got to you got to trick your mind into seeing the progress you're making. And if you can honestly look at yourself and go, man, I'm lazy and got nothing done. I made no progress today. Then yeah, that's a problem.
yeah,
That means that's when you can self-reflect and go, yeah, I have an issue with being a procrastinator or being
yeah.
lazy. No wonder I'm not experiencing success because you gotta make that list and try to tackle some of it every single day.
Absolutely. And we've almost been skirting around visualization. And how important is visualization for you?
Oh, I mean, it's huge. It's like I said, when I was a kid, I saw this picture of myself being just like Kerry Strug in the
Yeah.
1996 Olympics, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And
Yeah.
so by always kind of seeing that imagery of where I want to go, and I think that like right now, I'm working on several different projects. I actually am starting my own gymnastics competition. It's going to be here in
Nice.
Texas where I live this coming year. I've got this image in my head of how I want it to go, and I can see it. I want 1,000 boys in my competition, and I
Mm.
want them to have this kind of experience, and I want them to walk away with this kind of award, and I want them to get, these special bonus, whatever. Like I've got this list in my head, and I can see it perfectly.
Mm.
Now I just have to execute on it. So
Yeah.
if you could see it, you've got something to execute. And
Yeah.
that's the big action step. And without being able to see it, without writing down what you want and having an image of where you want to go, it's really hard to take that action and execute that goal. So I think visualization is extremely important.
And is it all in your head, or are you big on visualization boards? Because I know that can be quite a big thing as well.
Yeah, I mean a little bit of everything. I'm not a huge like the visual board. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people talk about having a vision board in the house with, write down all the things that you want to do in your life. I'm more of a list kind of guy. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I want this. Like I in my phone right here. I'm sitting here talking to you on my iPhone right now. I've got a note with like 20 different things that I want to accomplish. And then like for 2020. I remember in December of 2019, I had made a list of what I want to accomplish in 2020, and well, coronavirus has definitely made that interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, I just write it down. I like to write things down, and once it's written down, it like solidifies in my brain that that's important. Um,
Mm.
I don't need to wake up every day and like draw all over my bathroom mirror or anything like that. That works for some people, and I'm
Yeah,
all
for
about
sure.
it. Whatever you have to do to remind you of the things you told yourself you're going to do, so that you'll
Mm.
actually go do it. It's I think that there's an epidemic in the world of people that have these huge goals and say a lot of things and they never do anything with it.
Yep.
It's like stop talking the talk and go walk the walk kind of thing. And
Yeah.
if we could literally just get up and go do what we say we're going to do, you'll be blown away. And again, like I said, it's just little things. It just has to be something small and attainable day by day. You got to write that down too.
Yeah, and I think that really nicely links back to what you were talking about just a moment ago around judgment. I think that if people could just turn off that noise of external judgment of what others are
Yeah.
going to think about the thing that they start doing, especially if it's wildly different to something they've already done, that can
Yeah.
be really powerful.
Oh, I love that. If you care about what other people think about you, you've already lost.
Yeah.
And if that was me, shoot, you know how many people told me that I would never become an Olympian because when I was a kid, I wasn't any good.
Yeah.
You got to turn off the noise. You got to turn off not just the external noise, but the internal noise.
For sure.
So oftentimes we get started on a project that we're so excited about in the beginning, and as soon as we hit our first roadblock, we're like, "Ooh, now I got to go another direction."
Mm.
Instead of just plowing through that roadblock, and if it takes a while to get through it, just keep chipping away, keep going,
Yeah.
and stop telling yourself that you can't do what you want. Because I've always said, if you go down a road of some kind of challenging goal, some kind of mission, start it started it for a reason. You
Yeah.
started because there was some excitement about it. There was something that you wanted. So as soon as you hit that roadblock and you're super discouraged, close your eyes and remember why you got started in the first place.
Yeah.
And that'll kind of bring you back to reality and kind of you like self-inspire. Okay, like this sucks in the moment. Like this
Yeah.
is awful. I don't want to go anymore. Okay, why the heck did I start this? Oh,
Yeah.
because I saw myself doing this thing one day.
Yeah.
Because I saw myself being able to make this kind of money, or I saw myself having this kind of happiness, or whatever it is that drives you.
Mm.
You're not going to start a project for no reason at all. You're starting it because you saw yourself somewhere, and it might be harder than you thought, but you could still get there. And you got to remind yourself of that like initial inspiration that you had at first.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's where the visualization comes in, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, American Ninja Warrior, which we have over in the UK, it's a very good piece of entertainment. You've done that a number of times.
Yeah.
How was that?
I've done 6 years now, 6 years of Ninja Warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like my athletic victory lap. Yeah, it sounds really bad, but I do it because it's fun.
Yeah.
And as competitive as I am, it's all just because it's super fun. I couldn't care less whether I win or not.
Yeah.
I love to go out on the course and play on the obstacles and make new friends. And there's a community of Ninja Warriors that are just so much fun to be around. Truth be told, the guys that are really, really good, they're training for this like I was training for the Olympics.
Really?
They're in the gym, training 3-4 hours a day. They're rock climbing and they're obstacle training and they're doing cross training and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I did that for 28 years. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I go on the show. I usually fall on like the city finals, which is the second or third day. And
Yeah.
I land in the water and I stand up and I laugh and I run off the show and try to make it entertaining. But,
Yeah.
it's fun. It keeps me in shape. And, other than that, I mean, I don't have any huge crazy goals of being the $1 million champion or anything like that. It's just,
Yeah.
it is 100% almost for my own self-entertainment.
Yeah, I like that though. It seems like you've dedicated, even though you've obviously done it for you with your Olympic dream, you've also had to dedicate so much hours of every day for so much of your life. It's quite nice to be able to now take what you've built in physically your body, but also in your mind, and just put that into something that's fun.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
I mean, gymnastics was fun for me. I loved training.
Yeah.
It was super hard.
Mm.
And like I said, it was super frustrating, and there were so many times that I wanted to quit. But like Ninja Warrior is it's me being able to take my gymnastics and apply it to something else that I'm not stressed out about.
Yeah.
And there's no perfection in Ninja Warrior. It's you either beat the course or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shoot, I fell in the water again. I'll be back next year. And so yeah, it's I don't really know what else to say about it. People ask me all the time, oh, are you going to go back next year and win the $1 million? I'm like, no, probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. But you go back, right?
Yeah.
You'll go back.
So yeah, I'll keep going back just because it's a blast.
Exactly. So you're an author. You're a repeated Ninja Warrior contestant. You're talking about this kind of gymnast team that you want to build in Texas and stuff. But you're also, as you said, you're a dad. You've got 2 kids, and I've got 2 kids as well, 6 and 1. And how do you balance all that? How do you have this amazing career, and you do speaking as well, and I'm sure pre-COVID a lot of travel. How do you mix that up with being dad?
I don't know. Like that is the God's honest truth. I don't know how to do it. And it's hard, right? How do you balance? How do we as people balance our own selfish desires from being a selfless person and pouring into our families?
Yeah.
How do we not forget that we have obligations to the people that we love?
Yeah.
And especially like super ambitious people, it's really, really easy to get caught up in our work. And it's a conversation that my wife and I have all the time, and it's about setting boundaries. It's about setting priorities.
Mm.
We have times every night where it's like, hey, it's dinner time as a family. We're going to put our phones down. We're going to be a family. We're not going to focus on anything else. And it's little things like that
Yeah.
I feel like I'm terrible at it. Like, I feel like I am terrible at balancing work family life, and I don't feel like I'm alone in that for
No, not
sure.
at all.
So it's something that you have to work on, and always in the back of your mind go, okay, am I doing too much? Am I neglecting my family? Last year was terrible for me. I traveled like 150, maybe 200 days out of the year,
Wow.
and I missed my wife, my daughter, and my son's birthdays. And my son was playing baseball. I missed every single one of his baseball games. And this year I made a commitment to myself that I'm not missing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, COVID has made it very easy to not miss any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I now see the value after, in a way, coronavirus has been really valuable to me to see how much I miss and how much I love my family.
Mm.
And I'm going to, be better in the future about it. But like I said, I really don't know how to do it well. If you know how to do it well, let me know.
No, well, I've got an idea, and I think it goes back to that judgment again. I think it goes back to, like you say, you want to build a foundation for your family that was better than the foundation that you had, regardless of how good your foundation was. You always want to build better feels. And I think that, my parents divorced when I was quite young, so I think the thing that I lacked was a stable household, and particularly a male influence. So that's what I wanted to be for my kids. Then I got into career mode, and you start traveling the world, and you start, commuting and doing all that, and you think, dang, I'm kind of providing the same environment that I had, but through my choice. And there's a word that you said when you started, which is about your selfish desires. And selfish, I think, is the key moment for me. When I stopped, I changed the conversation. Instead of saying, or potentially arguing with my wife, I'm working so hard to earn all this money, and I'm doing it for you, and I'm doing it for us. That's not untrue, but also I'm doing it for me and my own selfish desires of how far can I go? How much can I learn? How much, I can't call my wife up and say, I'm going to be late home from work, so I'm having a beer with my manager, but I'm doing it for you. That's just not going to work. So I think when I realized that I was doing that and that was selfish, but that's okay because then I can't be resentful of it because it's my choice, that really changed things for me.
Yeah. It's like you're 100% correct. I mean, it's just so hard to, because I love the example of being out having a beer with your manager, because like, I'm trying to process this right now. Like, how do you manage the fact that, okay, if I work really hard, I can make money and provide for my family. But if I work really hard and never see my money or never see my family, my money means nothing.
Yes.
It's like you are helping, but you're hurting all at the same time. And there's this crazy delicate life balance that we have to find. Yeah. And a lot like, I guess, the pursuit of that dream that I was talking about earlier, we have to always be pursuing how we can be better for our families and for our careers instead of becoming complacent. I think it's really easy to go, okay, well, this is just how I am. This is how it's going to be. And this is just what I'm going to do. Yeah. I've met people that are like that. And instead of constantly tweaking and working on how to make life better, they've just given in to their own selfish desires and go, hey, everyone else around me, just figure it out. Figure out how to work with me because this is who I'm going to be. This is who I'm going to be. I'm not going to try to work on myself. I'm not going to try to, make myself a better human being, a better father, a better parent, better brother, whatever. Yeah. And I think that's like the worst thing you can do instead of go, okay, here's the life that I'm living. Yeah. Here's how it affects me. Here's how it affects others. How do I not just pay attention to how it affects me, but I'm also going to see, I'm going to talk to my wife. You know what? I'm going to sit down with my wife and say, how is my day-to-day habits? How are they affecting you and my children? And have that conversation. It might be a really hard one. Yeah. It could be a really easy one. It could be one that leads to like the greatest thing ever I know my wife appreciates if I just sit down with her and go, "Hey, how you doing? Um, how are things with the kids right now? How can I help? What
Yeah.
can I do differently?"
Yeah.
And by just having an open dialogue, it's life changing.
Yeah, I love that. It's so so true. I think just yeah, having you're with the people you're with for a reason, right? So why would you not want to
Yeah,
be better for them?
exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
the last question that I had for you is as dad, you've obviously experienced a lot, and I'm just thinking, what is either the best bit of parental advice that you received, or what is something that you've learned that you would give as best parental advice?
So the best advice I ever got was probably from my wife's father. He told me right before we had kids, he said the number one thing that you can do as a parent is to be consistent. And I didn't totally understand what he meant by that, but when it comes down to it, the worst thing that you can do for your kids is for your wife to be on one page
Yeah,
while you're on another page. Okay, kids walk up to you and we got a bucket of candy in the house, and my daughter says, "Dad, can I have a piece of candy?" And I say no, and then she runs to mom and says, "Mom, can I have a piece of candy?" And mom says yes.
yeah,
And little things like that. Your kids are so smart; they'll walk all over you.
yeah,
Um, and you've got to find a way to be a true like partnership where it's like we're on the same page all the time about all the things that we're doing. And that's going to create this nice little, like we talked about, foundation for the kids where they're never going to feel like they can take advantage of you. They're going to grow up to be more respectful adults. I think if you're going to discipline your kids for something one time, you got to discipline your kids for that same thing every time. You can't just
yeah,
let it go sometimes. We as parents, we get lazy. It's like, okay,
yeah,
I know I'll use this example again because it really happened in my house. All right, my daughter drew on the wall again. I'm too tired. I'm exhausted. It's the end of the day. I'm just going to ignore it this time. Whereas the other time, I had to put her in timeout for 5 minutes because like
yeah.
that's ridiculous. Or, you have to be consistent with how you parent
Mm.
because if you don't, it's just confusing to the kids.
Yes.
Like they don't know. And like I said, I think the worst part is they will take advantage of you and they will start to manipulate you as parents because
Yeah.
they are so smart.
Yeah. And I think that's where potentially families, husbands, wives can fall out and relationships can fall down. Potentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look, that is fantastic advice. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and just thank you, John, so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
That's been great. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome.